Hello, nice to meet ya, and welcome to my Umineko Episode 1 Legend of the Golden Witch Analysis, Predictions, Investigation. I'm a big fan of anything murder mystery or anime related, and since pretty much Agatha Christie's and then there were none in anime format with a even larger story and magic involvement, I just had to play this. And since I had the time and the energy and just needed someone to talk to about this, I thought, why not make an analysis video about it and try to figure out what actually was happening on the island, who the killer is and what the goal might be. So, before we go into this, one quick reminder, this is the first episode. I've only played the first episode, so I don't know anything about the later ones, and I'm just doing this for fun. So, if you want to correct me on something, feel free to do so, but do it nicely. And don't spoil anything. If you spoil stuff, then I'll just ban you in the comment section, and hopefully I won't even read it because someone notifies me, but just be nice. Okay, and secondly, an even bigger rule, there is no magic. We will assume that there is no magic during this entire discussion, this entire analysis, because if there is magic, everything is pointless. We are Battler, we are trying to figure out this mystery. So, let's get straight into it with the suspects. First of all, we have, of course, Old Man Kinzo, the monarch of the family, in control of everything and very much into the occult. His first son, Kraus, who's the one who's going to inherit everything. He seems also quite in control and relatively smart, but we don't know much about him yet. Natsuhi we know a lot more of. She has a lot of self-esteem issues and is not well received by some members of the family. And together with her husband, she is parents to Jessica, who is the first, well, not the first child, but the first daughter of the family. She is a bit rebellious and sometimes rash, but also very nice. And I don't think she would have it in her to kill anyone. Then we have Ava, who is a bit mean-spirited as the second daughter of Kinzo, who is not supposed to inherit everything. But she's also quite smart and can be nice if the occasion asks for it. Her husband Hideyoshi, though, is the picture of niceness, at least on the surface. He has a bit of issues with his company and can be a bit more strict if necessary, but overall he seemed nice all throughout without much issues. Then his son George pretty much inherits all the good parts of his parents. He seems nice, is in control in most situations, and watches out for the other children. And he has a secret love for Shannon, one of the servants. Then we have Rudolph, the third son. He is very much similar to Battler, that he is a bit pervy and strange and all very extroverted, but seems to cover up his own, his true feelings underneath it. He can also be quite serious, especially when it got to the discussions about the money and all. On top of that, he had an idea that he might die, so he might have something to do with all of this happening. Then we have Curie, the husband of Rudolph, but not the father of Battler, since she just married into the family after his actual mother died. And she's also very smart, at least what you're supposed to believe, and brought the whole spin the chessboard thing into the game. Then, of course, Battler, our protagonist, he's very much like his father. So maybe he seems nicer on the surface, or less rough at least. And he's very curious and relatively smart. Curious seems smarter, or Ava, but he also has a good brain. Then we have Rosa, the last child of this of Kinzo. She seems very calm, but also reluctant and not very outspoken. But she can get quite angry at her own daughter, Maria, who is very much into the occult since she has a lack of friends and is a bit weird overall, but also kind of cute, as long as she isn't rambling on about how everything is magic and witches. Then, moving on from the family, we have Genji, the head servant, who has been in Kinzo's, under Kinzo's control for a very long time, so he knows a lot about him, and is pretty much the most knowledgeable person about this entire issue, aside from Kinzo. We have Nanjo, who also probably knows quite a lot since he's an old friend of Kinzo and his personal doctor, and they play chess regularly, but we don't know much about him at the current time. Then Kumasawa, another old servant that has seen a lot, but she's a bit weird. She's quite nice at most of the times, a bit teasing, but also gets very panicked and values her own life quite a lot. During the end phase of episode 1, she was mostly just a wreck of nerves. Then we have Goda, the cook that was hired from a high esteemed hotel. We once again don't know much about him since he died early. Aside from he is very large and very mean to Shannon and also Kanon. Speaking of which, we have Kanon and Shannon, which are supposedly, well, not quite siblings, but they are kind of siblings since they're both from the same orphanage that was founded by Kinzo, and they see themselves as Kinzo's personal property, who he can do with whatever he wants. Though they both kind of grow out of this role, Kanon by rebelling against Beatrice and Shannon through falling in love with George. Now, having given an introduction to all of them, let's already move on to the first case. Maria's letter, which was delivered at 6 p.m. while she was in the garden searching for a rose during the rainstorm. The meaning of the rose and everything is an entirely different issue. It very much plays, I think, into the something that is supposed to be there isn't there, and weird rose like Beatrice and everything. But it's hard to put anything concrete on it if we don't actually know what's going on. During the time she was in the garden, during the storm, Beatrice suddenly appeared and gave her an umbrella as well as a letter. As to who Beatrice could be, we have to assume that this is one of the other 17 people on this island. Cause if it is not, then once again we have the 19th person issue or magic, and both of these trivialize everything. So we have to assume that one of the remaining people is the culprit. As for where everyone was, Kinzo was in her study with Nanjo playing chess. Natsuhi was alone in her room with headaches. The rest of the family members, aside Rosa, were in the dining hall discussing the inheritance. Meanwhile, the kids, excluding Maria, were spending time watching TV in their room. Or what's the parlor? I'm not quite sure. There we have it. Rosa was in the parlor alone and supposedly sleeping. Meanwhile, the servants were alone in the kitchen, alone somewhere in the house, and at work together, though Kanon supposedly left from time to time to take care of different rooms, so he could have had time to do something alone. What needs to be said here is that Maria supposedly saw Beatrice. So someone who looks female and can pull off the look of Beatrice. I don't believe that Maria would think that someone like Goda actually looks like Beatrice. So pretty much any male group that could have played her is out of the picture for me. Similarly, the children all cover for each other, and we know from Battler that we can't trust them. So Kinzo was also out since he was surprised by the letter later on, thinking that it was from actually Beatrice. And for the reason of not looking enough like Beako, both Goda and Genji are out as well. Now this leaves us with 4 different groups. Natsuhi and Rosa can obviously not be accounted for since they were both alone. We have Rosa's inner monologue that somehow suggests she was actually sleeping, but we could have some case of something like DID maybe, where she has a different personality that comes out or something like that. We had this idea sort of scraped upon with Maria, since she's constantly switching her behavior between being nice and cute and being the little devilish witch. So maybe Rosa has something similar. So maybe it is DID, maybe it is just a personality issue. I don't know. Furthermore, her inner monologue spoke about her having a burden greater than any of the children could imagine, which could just be the family issues, but maybe she also has some deep dark secret. These servants, it's hard to tell. Kumasawa and Shannon technically cover for each other, but maybe there was some unspoken rule about, well, the master told us to do this and that, or we have a complot against the master. Hard to tell. With the adults discussion, all the parents besides Natsuhi and Rosa, technically Ava and Curie could pull it off, so though that would mean that all of the parents are aware of the letter and that it isn't actually from Beatrice. So in that case, it would mean that there's some kind of ploy by the children, like the parents, who are trying to maybe cover something up. Maybe they actually decided to do a battle royale, and whichever family is left standing gets the inheritance, and then they want to cover it up by making it seem like some occult murder. Or they want to find the gold and believe that if they just do it this way, they will get the gold. Or Kinzo will run and lead them to the gold. So we can't really put them aside just because they seemed surprised when Maria was telling the story. Now, from a very light-hearted little letter that could be interpreted as a joke, let's go on to the mansion massacre at roughly 12 p.m., maybe 1 or 2 hours later. We just know it was somewhere after this, because Ava and Hideyoshi supposedly left the discussion and returned to the guest house, I think, but they were at the mansion at the time, so I'm keeping them here. Kinzo stayed at the mansion. We do not know about Nanjo, though he played till late chess with Kinzo, so it's hard to tell where he actually was. And Natsuhi was in her room the entire time, so she stayed at the mansion. Who also stayed at the mansion until the better end were our 6 victims, which include the parents with Rosa, Kraus, Rudolph, and Curie, as well as 2 servants with Shannon and Goda. There are 3 points of interest here. First of all, Shannon was not supposed to be here. She just happened to go to the mansion because she wanted to avoid George, because she wasn't unsure how to respond to his feelings. Or, well, maybe how to go about her duty while responding to his feelings. That would be the more accurate response. And while at the mansion, there are 2 points of interest maybe. She found the lights in one of the floors, which she interprets as Beatrice's appearance, but maybe someone was sneaking around, and the blood on Natsuhi's door. My idea would be that Natsuhi was actually supposed to die as well, but the killer ran into Shannon on the way to the room, who wasn't supposed to be there, so they didn't expect her, and thus they had to kill Shannon to silence a witness. And Shannon then only managed to make it to Natsuhi's door, leaving a bloody hand stain on the handle or something like that. This explained both why Natsuhi is still alive, due to the charm of course, and how the blood on her doorknob came to be. Now, the second point of interest is that both Shannon's and Krause's faces are only partially destroyed, which makes us capable of determining that these are actually these 2 people. So we know Krause is dead, and we know Shannon is dead. Furthermore, we don't see the faces of the other 4, which we'll talk about after we talk about the rest of the people who are all staying at the guest house, which are the 4 children and the remainers of the servants. Obviously, that doesn't mean much, since any of them could have gone to the mansion at any time, so it's just important to say that's where they are supposedly. So if they're anywhere else, there should be some weird reason for it. Now, about the destroyed faces, this actually makes it hard to tell if they actually are the people who we think they are, or if they were just dressed up and left there. Though it needs to be said that we do not have an extra female body that is unaccounted for. So if Rosa or Curie aren't actually the bodies, who else will it be? And if their faces are destroyed to hide something and there are no spare bodies, then the only thing I could think of is that they were actually alive and just pretending to be dead. But in that case, maybe Nanjo would have need to be involved, and that would make the whole issue a lot more complicated. Rudolph and Goda, on the other hand, might have been able to be replaced. Goda seems a bit large to be someone else, but Rudolph could have easily been, I don't know, the vanished Kinzo, for example, which will be our next mystery. But all of the parents being dead is just weird in multiple ways. Once again, there could be the whole battle royale besides the children thing, and Ava and Hideyoshi just happened to be the ones who survived and then were unable to kill Natsuhi. But that also once again runs into the issue, why do it that way, and what did they expect to do after all of this was over? Like, the police wouldn't just let them go if they are the only survivors, especially with what happens after this. But, as we already said, if there is a fake body, it would need to belong to Kinzo, and he just vanished at some point. We suppose that he was in his room at 8 a.m. when Natsui came to talk to him and was told that she has the one-winged eagle on her heart instead of her clothes, which gave her entire confidence for the rest of the episode. And then when she left, Ava caught her at the door and put a slip into it, making sure that no one actually left the room between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. when they discovered that Kinzo wasn't in the study anymore. Now, how he escaped from the study, he has endless possibilities. Either someone from the outside noticed the slip and then helped him escape and putting the slip back in, or there was some secret hiding place that he hid out in, or maybe there is some secret way into the room that either Genji didn't know about or Genji lied about, not knowing about it. Another important point is that we do not know 100% that the Kinzo that we saw there is actually Kinzo. It is highly likely. I think he turned around so that Natsui could actually see him. But since she doesn't see him all that often, since he hides in his room most of the time, it is still possible that someone like Rudolph would be able to imitate his father if given the proper makeup and costume. Which maybe someone like Rosa could be capable of with a whole design company, but this is all just speculation and maybe it adds to a theory later, but on its own it stands on nothing. Now, this leads us directly to the next crime, the perfect closed room, a room with even less escape capabilities than the one before. In this case, Hideyoshi and Eva went alone to the room and were murdered, with a chain being put onto the door, making it impossible for anyone to get in or out without putting the chain in. During the time they were in the room and were murdered, which was rather 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. since Nanjo diagnosed their time of death 1 hour early, nearly everyone was accounted for, being either in the parlor or the kitchen. They could technically slip out since they sometimes wandered between those places or went to the toilet, but the time window seems rather small for all of this. Thus, I would take them out of the equation. This leaves 2 people, either Kinzo himself, who is vanished, or I will call him the Beako killer, the secret person wandering around the mansion. Who that could be, well, pretty much anyone who isn't accounted for, or who is supposedly dead, but we can't be 100% sure. Hideyoshi, Ava, Kraus, and Shannon are 100% dead, so they can't be Beako, but Rosa, Kyrie, Rudolph, and Goda technically could somehow still be alive and fake their death and now be wandering around. So there's this secret 18th and a half person, the one who is there but also isn't. They could have probably just gone to the room, killed them, maybe used some technical device to put the chain into the lock from outside the door, maybe like some mechanical arm that does that, but it's 86 or something, so I don't know if they're capable of something like that. Now, what is quite interesting is that the magic circle was only added later, when Kanon and Genji found the room at 7 p.m. They couldn't get in, but there was no magic circle, so they turned around. Kanon got Kumasawa to grab a cutter to get through the chain, while Genji got Nanjo and they returned to the parlor to get everyone else to come to the room. This took roughly 5 minutes, during which everyone was accounted for, aside from Kinzo and Beako. And when they got back after these 5 minutes, the magical circle was already there. Meaning someone was watching the place and put it there after they went away, and these people, the person who did that, was quite knowledgeable about magic circles since they were able to do all of this in 5 minutes. Now, we already have the situation that everyone is accounted for but 2 people here. This also happens with the boiler room chaos right after. I would put it at around 7:30 p.m. when the entire mansion was stinking because of the smoke coming from the boiler room. Everyone stayed behind, but Kanon and Kumasawa went to investigate. Kanon was then killed by Beatrice while Kumasawa was lagging behind, not capable of catching up to him. This Beatrice, once again, can't be any of the other people since they are all accounted for in the floors and parlor or whatever. And thus the one who killed Kanon is either Kumasawa or the secret person lurking around. Kumasawa seems quite unlikely since she actually came after him a short while later, and maybe she is fit enough to kill him and run around the entire building, but she also would have to switch clothes and everything, so it's hard to tell. What's furthermore interesting is that when Kanon saw the supposed Beatrice and tried to kill her, he was actually relatively sure that this is Beatrice. So someone must have dressed up as Beatrice. So, what does it tell us? It kind of needs to be a woman. I don't think a man could pose up as Beatrice convincingly enough for Kanon to be fooled. Thus, it only leaves us with Kyrie and Rosa for the secret killer. But how is that possible? We'll see. We'll look about it later. Now, the second part of this mystery is equally interesting, since it's the burnt corpse in the boiler room. The burnt corpse probably isn't the one who killed Kanon, since it seems to have been smeltering there for a while, but is supposed to be Kinzo, since he is identified by his sixth toe. This alone, though, isn't conclusive evidence for me that he is actually Kinzo, like the corpse. We talked about that magic isn't just doing stuff to unexplainable means, but it could be considered a very low chance of something happening, and still it's happening. In this case, maybe someone else also has 6 toes. It could be someone in the family, since it might be genetical, or Goda just happened to have 6. So, while the body is supposedly Kinzo, it could also be someone else. What is furthermore important, the body was burnt. Why? Why did we burn the body? If we want to hide the identity, we could just once again try to crush the face. So maybe Kinzo's old body would be too obvious, hard to tell. Also, if we want to hide the method of murder, well, crushing the face seems to have worked before with the people who died during the massacre, since we don't know how exactly they died, so why do it here? Okay, what else could we hide by burning the body? Well, Nanjo is still around, and he can roughly tell the time of death. So, if we burn the body, we wouldn't know the time of death anymore. But why would we need to hide it if Kinzo just died a few moments before Kanon, or like, I don't know, an hour before? Well, there's 2 reasons this could be the case. First of all, if Kinzo died before Eva and Hideyoshi, who died around 6 p.m., this would mean that the whole epitaph stuff is nonsense, since now the 4th Twilight, I believe, happened before the 3rd Twilight, which would go against the entire magic stick. So this could destroy the illusion of magic, and thus we needed to cover up Kinzo's death in a way that makes it seem like he died after Hideyoshi and Eva. The second option would be, if we go back to the Vanishing Act, that this wasn't actually Kinzo in the study and that Natsuhi was talking to a fake. In that case, we would also hide the fact that Kinzo was dead before Natsuhi even came to that room, hiding the fact that this must have been an imposter. All of that, just possibilities. It could add up to a coherent story, but we'll have to see this through to the end. Because from here on, things become weirdly more obvious, while also still being completely mysterious, because the way we get there is just weird. Oh yeah, who is Kinzo? I forgot about my wonderful question mark. The sealed study. While not a murder case, there was a letter that just appeared out of nowhere. We know that Natsuhi, George, Jessica and Battler were away from the table, so they can't have put it there. Technically, Natsuhi could have put it there and then said she didn't see it, but I kind of trust Natsuhi due to her internal monologues and the way she behaves the entire time and for what will happen after this case. So I take it that all these 4 people are safe from this. That's what I assume. Thus, we are only left with Nanjo, Kumasawa, Maria and Genji. They can have done it, the others can't. And obviously there would be the possibility of Beatrice having done it, but there's a whole other issue with that. Since Beatrice as the witch wouldn't be able to enter due to the magical seal, and Berko the killer can't really enter since the study is supposedly closed off, and both keys are in our possession, so they're just bricked out. Unless they are somehow hiding in the study beforehand, then drop the letter from the ceiling or something, but at that point, how are you even supposed to speculate about that? So, the remaining 4 are our main suspects, and this continues on to the gruesome lullaby, when we get a phone call from the now again working phones, which was probably repaired by someone, probably Berko, and we hear the lullaby sung by Maria, which is why our group, which was in the study, rushes into the parlor, where we then find the dead bodies of Genji, Nanjo, and Kumasawa. Obviously, none of the people in the room could have been responsible for that, and it is also stated by Maria that Berko was supposedly in the room with them, so a 5th person was there, which then again not only eliminates these 4 from the equation, but also means there needs to be someone who isn't actually dead sneaking around. And the only one unaccounted for, that would be woman-like, are still Kyrie and Rosa. If it can be someone who is a man and somehow dresses up as Berko, it still could be Kinzo, Goda, or Rudolph, but it just doesn't fit right for me. Furthermore, we now get confirmation that Maria had to look away during the murders, which might be important for Berko's rule set later on, which we will be talking about. And all the dead bodies here had their faces destroyed. This is interesting, since we already speculated that there might actually be a secret supporter maybe in the group of the survivors, or of the non-Berko affiliated people, so that either Genji, Nanjo, or Kumasawa might actually be working with the killer. And since the faces were destroyed here, we can't be 100% sure that the dead people are actually who they claim to be, or who they are dressed up to be. Nanjo, for example, could just be Hideyoshi's body dressed up and his face destroyed to destroy the evidence of the stake being driven in. Kumasawa could be one of the dead women. Or Genji could be Rudolph's dead body. So any of them might still be alive. Then afterwards, we get another letter which leads Natsuhi to leave the room and block all the children inside. Oh, we don't know who they are. While she faces Beatrice in the main hall. This then leads to a supposed duel, which seemingly has Natsuhi kill herself. We do not have direct confirmation that she saw, but I think we did have that she saw Beatrice, or Berko, and it seems once again that Beatrice looks like a woman. So our Berko killer should be female. But then, as stated, Natsuhi kills herself, seemingly, which should be the case because the Winchester that she has with herself and that shot her is Umineko. So there's only one of those. It needs to be by her own weapon that she killed herself. The question now obviously is, why would she kill herself? And there's not many reasons I can see for her doing that. One would be to protect her daughter somehow, but why would she trust that the killer doesn't go after the children after they murdered everyone else already? So the second idea would be if she is somehow broken, or her entire self-esteem is built up on a lie and she has to realize that. And this would once again play into the fake Kinzo theory, that maybe the one in the study was, for example, Genji acting up as Kinzo, telling her this lie, and then at the end here, when she confronts Beatrice, actually Genji shows up and tells her, yeah, well, you've been just doing stuff based on nothing the entire time. This would then destroy her world and maybe lead her to kill herself, but it's unclear. The only thing that is clear is the children can't have done any of this, so the Beatrice that appears before Natsuhi, as we've stated multiple times again and again, must be someone that is supposedly dead. Though in this case it could also be any of the servants that just died, since their faces have been destroyed as well. This is the case-by-case basis. Throughout all of this, there are a few more things that we had to question all the time. That is the everything is possible but nothing is conundrum that we've been facing the entire time. Under this falls the 19th person conundrum, which states that there should be a 19th person that is doing all of this, but there can't be, because then it would just be all for nothing, because there needs to be a Beatrice. But it also has the issue of the fake bodies that can't really be fake bodies. Beatrice should be female and played by a female, but none of the female bodies could be replaced by another one. And the only one that is unaccounted for is a male body, which once again can't really be Beatrice. So we have that whole issue to cover of how did someone impersonate Beatrice while playing dead. Then there's the issue with the keys. There's always just one key for something or two keys, but there's also the possibility that every key has been replicated or there's been a lie about only being one there. And is the statement even worth anything? Any door can pretty much be opened at any time because there's always a key for it. So keys are just worthless. Every door should be considered open at any time. The only issue is when doors are only openable from the front, like for example the storehouse, which can't be opened from inside, which would pose a problem if, for example, Rosa played dead and lay inside and just couldn't get out. So in that case, maybe someone who frequented between the parlor and the kitchen could have just run away for a second, opened the door, run back, and then continued on and somehow freed her this way. Depends all on how much time they had in between. Then the issue of the defiled bodies. They were either burned, well, one was burned and the other had their faces destroyed. This not only brings up the problem that it makes it hard to identify anyone, it also makes it difficult to determine the time of death in terms of the burned body. And the question remains, why even do that? The only logical explanation for why anyone who isn't a cult would do that is to hide identities. Otherwise, this might be some kind of ritual or to freak us out, but it's all very unclear. Especially, how do they even do that? How do they destroy these faces like that? Do they have some kind of machine? A very open question. And lastly, all going in with the dead bodies is the unknown motive. There's this constant occult theme running through, some rituals being done, or the stakes being used, but why? Is it just a distraction? Does the culprit have another goal, like reaching the gold, or wanting to destroy the family? Or getting revenge for something? But then why go through all of the trouble to make this huge, elaborate occult setup? And if it is an actual thing, what's the goal behind the occult thing? Do they want to use it to revive Beatrice? Do they want to bring magic into the world? Rosa, for example, we are being told that she dislikes her daughter, but maybe she actually really likes her daughter and wants to make magic real for her or something like that. Who knows? And lastly, this goes in with a motive. If at the end no one survives, how could this even work out? We know that the children aren't found by the police, they are just gone and they only find Maria's jaw. So we have to assume that she at least is dead, but what about everyone else? We don't know if they actually died or just vanished, but even if they vanished, how? With a boat maybe that they hit somewhere on the island and then escaped at the end, hoping that the police would believe them to be dead if they just vanished? Like, what's the actual plan here? The only thing that could profit the culprit maybe in any way is if they find the gold and grab like 6 gold bars, go on the boat, run away and then start a new life. Otherwise, I have no idea how any of this would work out. But, with all of these things in mind, how suspicious does it make each person? Since, while trying to put all of this into place, I realized making one theory is nigh impossible because everything I come up with somehow leads to a logic hole that I just can't fill at the moment. I decided, why not just rank every character by how likely they are to either be the killer or be involved with the killer. This way, maybe if we go through each episode, we can slowly put them one by one into the "you are nice" category, which makes clear they are not in leagues with the killer in any way. And by having 1, 2, 4 people maybe left, we can then put it together in a way that actually makes sense. Well, let's try it. First off, in You and I is obviously Battler. He's our protagonist. He's trying to solve the case, and I don't think this is a story where the detective is actually the killer. his thought patterns just don't match that. And we have all the children. They pretty much acted innocent the entire time. I don't see any motive for them. And even though Maria is very much supportive of what Beatrice is doing, she seems to genuinely believe that this is magic and not some elaborate mass killing. Furthermore, at the end she writes a letter where she is asking for this entire case to be solved. Then, the kids aside, I would also grant mercy on Natsuhi and Kanon. Natsuhi is constantly working against the culprit and her inner monologue doesn't match with that of the killer. And Kanon explicitly states that he wants to get revenge for Shannon against Beatrice and seems to believe in Beatrice, meaning that he also doesn't know that the killer is an actual person. In the same category should technically fall Shannon, though with her we just don't know enough. Maybe she's involved in some way, was tasked by Kinzo to do something, or by one of the killers to hide something, or appear as Beatrice in front of Maria at the beginning. Hard to tell. Other than her, we have Kumasawa, who might just be a pretty good actress, but she seemed quite distressed herself about the entire situation. And there's just not much to go against her. Yes, she's one of the servants, but also if Beatrice is already female, then I somehow doubt that the supporter would be female. Maybe that's just too much meta analysis here. But I think if any of the servants are involved, it's probably a male one, since Beatrice is already female. At least from my perspective. Thus, Kumasawa is in the probably nice, but there's still some doubt about her category. Then we have Eva and Hideyoshi. They just died in the second Twilight, and well, we definitely know they did die, so they can't be involved in any of the latter stuff. The only thing they could be responsible for is still the letter and the massacre, which might have been some ploy by the parents. We don't know, but that would be the only way they are involved. This is why they are still in the nice but category, because there's a tiny chance that they have somehow involved themselves in some kind of complot by all the parents. The same goes for Kraus. He died in the very first night, though. We also know he did die, so the argument is the very same. But it doesn't sit right. Well, even more parents. We have Rudolf and Kyrie. The same argument as for Kraus and Eva and Hideyoshi can be made for these two, with the only difference that their deaths in the first massacre aren't confirmed. Their faces were destroyed, so maybe Kyrie-san somehow survived and played Beatrice and betrayed Rudolf or anything. Furthermore, Rudolf seems to know something about the massacre, since he mentioned being worried that he won't be alive for much longer. So there's definitely something up with them, but it's hard to tell what. Then we have Kinzo, because, well, he's Kinzo. We all know he has some involvement. He is the one who started this whole thing. It's just very unlikely that he is the killer, but he definitely has something to do with it. In a similar line to Kumasawa, we have Goda and Nanjo. There isn't really anything going against them, but also not for them. They're just there, especially Nanjo, and they have like small connections, Goda to Kanon and Shannon, and Nanjo to Kinzo, so they could just be in any position. It's hard to tell. I wouldn't put them in nice because there's just nothing known about them, but I also wouldn't put them in don't trust them because I have nothing that would go against them from my perspective. Then in And Don't Trust You, there's Rosa, once again another of the parents that died during the massacre and had no face, but also we need someone female for Beatrice, and well, we could as well put Kyrie here. Kyrie is for me always connected to Rudolf in a way, and I just don't see her murdering him. Or if anything happens, they would probably work together. So unless both of them are involved, Rosa seems like the far more likely candidate. On top of that, we have the whole issue with Maria, and that she might be trying to do the whole magic for her, so she's just my main suspect for now. But as I said, if Rosa is the killer, then she needs a supporter inside the group, and the only one I can think of for that is Genji. He has the most knowledge of the situation outside of Kinzo. He knows the mansion, he knows the people, he has plenty of situations where he could act that way, and he was leading us along a lot. He was the one who decided where we could go, which rooms might be safe, and what course of action to take. He had a lot of control over the situation, probably the most next to Natsuhi. And, well, that's about it. There's not much to tell here as well. We don't know much about him personally, and maybe there is some involvement with Rosa with him or any of the other people. Maybe he isn't as old as he looks and he's actually Maria's father. Who knows? So going with that, we will update this every episode and hopefully then be able to put more people into Nice. But what we also might need to update is this Beatrice's rule set. We were already told by, I believe, Burncastle that if we want to beat Beatrice, we need to know her rules. And even though we said no magic, it might be a good idea to know what magic rules there are to see how the killers might act. First of all, they seem to be following the Epitaph's kill order, at least it seems so. It might be bendable if we consider that Nanjo Kinzo might have been killed either before Eva and Hideyoshi or even before the entire massacre happened. Next, no one seems to be allowed to witness the miracles. Each and every miracle happened in a spot where no one could observe it besides the people who were killed. This becomes even clearer at the end when Maria is told to turn around in order not to see what is happening. This might be a case of, well, if it can't be observed then nobody really knows what is happening and everything is possible. Furthermore, as long as the 9th triad hasn't been reached, there seem to be clear conditions that need to be met for Beatrice to do anything, such as a magic circle or some magic tools. And this is such more of a theory than a rule, but as long as something is observed, it exists. If no one observes it, it ceases to exist. This could be the rule that applies to Beatrice. If we actually believe in Beatrice, if we observe her, think that she must exist because there's no other way for these things to happen, then Beatrice does exist because that's our observation. But if we deny her existence and think she doesn't exist because there is a killer and not her, then her existence is denied and she can't exist. Now, with all of this, while I can't make a theory for this case, let's try at least to have a bit of fun and make a prediction of what will happen in the next episode. So, for the first Twilight, who is going to be killed? This is my selection. I would still go with Rudolph and Curie since they seem to know something or be really smart and thus it might be a better idea to keep them for later. Then I would also keep Natsuhi and Genji out of the loop since they had a lot of screen time in the first one, and with Genji this could be a good mix-up to make him seem more innocent if he is a killer. In a similar vein, Eva and Hideyoshi seem rather innocent already and had a bit of a character moment and influenced the group thinking, especially George's a lot, so having them out early might change dynamics up. Especially if Shannon is to survive, which I suspect will be one of the stronger points here since she was killed very early on in the other route. Having her dynamic with George be more of a focus could push Eva and Hideyoshi out since they might take some of that screen time onto them. Then from here, with the remaining survivor, we need to find two for the second Twilight, which need to be people who are close to each other. This could obviously a parent-child pairing or lovers pairing. Any parent-child stuff like Kraus, Jessica or Rosa Maria seem unlikely though, since I would like to see more of Kraus. In the first place, so I don't want him to die that early, and Maria, Rosa, I don't see Maria dying, let me be honest. She seems like more of the direct and antithesis to Battler, who is all logic while she is all magic, so I see her survive for a longer time. Thus, the remaining pairs would be Shannon and George, or Jessica and Kanon if they somehow come out about their feelings for each other. And I would go with Jessica Kanon in all honesty, because Shannon already died very early and I want her to somehow get more screen time, and so maybe she lives on in terms of canon and now she can go on a revenge and experience who she really is or something like that. For the 4th to 8th Twilight, I decided to make them all into one, since it's kind of hard to tell the order or even how many will appear at once. Thus, they will be rolled into one, and then the 9th Twilight will be the duel, if this will happen again in the second episode, and the 10th Twilight is the survivors group, or those who will vanish at the end, cause no one survived at the end. So, who do we put into the 4th to 8th Twilight? Well, my first choice was Kumasawa. Once again, her position in the story is rather unclear, so I didn't quite know what to do with her. She could live longer, maybe even till the end, but right now I don't really know where to put her, so she's going here. Then Rosa, the reasoning for her is pretty much entirely driven by my suspicion for her. Since she needs to become Beatrice at some point, she also needs to die or vanish at some point, and that would be one of the earlier Twilights, so that you can be there for the 9th one. Besides them, the things got a bit more complicated. The question was what to do with the servants and what to do with Kraus and Kinzo. I decided that it would be quite weird for Kinzo to just randomly appear again, so I thought, how else could he be killed or could he appear? I don't think he would survive till the end, so I thought, well, how about Kraus searches him out, finds him, and wants to talk with him about what's actually going on here. But in the end, it just leads to these two having this discussion, unbeknownst to anyone else. They are trying to get to them, find them, and they are both dead. That would be my version of it and how they end up here. Then we still have a few characters left. We have the combo of Shannon and George. We have Goda and Nanjo, and we have Butler and Maria. I still think Butler and Maria will survive till the end. And if we have the George-Shannon combo up to this point, then I think they might be the focus of this episode. And thus I would put one of them at the 9th Twilight. So this leaves us with the choice between Goda and Nanjo. Well, these two at the end. And between these two, Goda has, I guess, the largest connection to maybe Shannon. Since he kind of always hates on her and is mean to her, so maybe there will be some character growth in that department. Thus I thought, well, let's keep him around longer, kill Nanjo off earlier, maybe even together with Kinzo and Kraus, and have Goda till the end. Then of course the question was who will sacrifice themselves at the 9th Twilight, George or Shannon? Since it would be weird to have Butler, Maria and George in combination with Goda at the end, like 3 siblings plus Goda, it felt wrong to have like 3 of the same survivors and then Goda instead of Jessica. I decided that George will be the one to sacrifice himself during the 9th Twilight, and Shannon will survive to the end, which will give us a more healthy and normal mixture. Furthermore, George would obviously wish for Shannon to live once again, so to not repeat that, we just have the reverse with Shannon wishing for George to survive. And with that, the episode 2 predictions are done. With how it played out, my suspicions for what will be the focus is the relationship between Kraus and Kinzo, as well as between Shannon and George. I'm not too sure how Maria will play into this, or Butler himself, especially since Butler has a lot less people to talk to, I feel like. Like, most of these aren't his usual conversation partners. Eva is dead, Natsui isn't around. I mean, I guess with the other children, but we'll see how it plays out. I also think that this will set the seeds for the for more updates on the Jessica canon relationship, so they will be set up here a bit more, even more than the first episode, and then they might be the focus of the 3rd episode, for example. As for the others, I think if Nanjo survives a bit longer in this case, since I put him at the end here and not Kumasawa, maybe we'll get some more info of him, especially if we have the whole Kraus-Kinzo dynamic, which I'm hoping for. Then we could also get some more Nanjo infos. And then episode 3, Far in the Future, could be the one that focuses more on the Kumasawa canon stuff and all of that. And well, the Goda is obviously here for the Shannon relationship, I guess. I honestly have no idea what to do with him. Possibly Goda could be Maria's dad. That would be one option if, like, Rosa had a relationship with the cook for some reason. I don't know. It would be weird. I don't know what to do with that one. So yeah, Goda is just there. And we'll see how it all plays out. Thank you if you paid attention to me for now, and if you will turn into the future, feel free to have any kind of discussion in the comments or with me personally on Twitter or however. And I would be happy to see you again next time. Bye bye!